We've talked about using Google Quizzes as a way to provide some self-checking. Another way you can do that is through data validation. So in order to create immediate self-checking or data verifying forms in Google Forms, you can use the data validation tool when creating questions. This is helpful when you want those who are completing your form to be able to immediately know if their answers are correctly entered before the form can be submitted. This is super helpful when you want the answers entered to be a specific kind of entry, like numbers, a specific length, a specific answer, or other types of customizable rules. So let's talk about how to turn on response validation. So I'm going to enter a sample question for us to use to practice with this response validation. And this works with only a few types of question types. It works with short answer, it works with paragraph, and it also works with checkboxes. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to start with a short answer just to kind of show you this sample. And where you turn response validation on is down in the three-dot menu in the bottom right-hand corner of the individual question. When you click on that, you'll see response validation. When you click on response validation, it now is going to have a check next to it. And you'll also see you have some menus across the top. And this is where you can set those options for the types of validations that you want. So we're going to talk about those specifics, but I did want to show you where to turn that on. So again, this is not going to be available in every question type. It's going to be available in short paragraph responses or checkbox questions. So now let's talk about the different types of response validation. So since we've entered a short answer type of question sample here, I want to talk about the short answer response validation options first. So you'll notice a drop down on the left where you can choose from 4 different types: numeric, text, length, and irregular expression. So let's talk about what each of these means. For number, this rule is used for limiting answers to numbers with options such as greater than, equal to, between, whole, and more. So if I choose number, I'm going to get some different responses. So I can say the number that's entered has to be greater than, equal to, less than, not between, is, whatever you want that to be. So if I wanted it to be a specific number like 5, then I can enter some custom error text, which is what's going to pop up if they do not enter a number equal to 5. So that's something that you can put in as sample error text. Again, that is with number. Now, let's look at text. So with text, this rule is used for limiting text to contain or not contain certain words, phrases, letters, email addresses, or URLs. This is a great one when you want the text to be a specific type. For example, do you want the text to look like an email address? So Google already knows what an email address looks like, whether it's at gmail.com or at yahoo.com or at hcpsnc.org. It knows what an email address looks like. So if this question were enter your email address and they put in something like I am smart, then you can put custom error text that says it must be an email address entered into this field. So they can't even enter in anything unless it fits this validation rule. So besides email addresses, you can require it to be a URL, and you can say it contains or doesn't contain certain things. So if I said contains, notice I'm going to get the text. So I want at least the answer to this to contain a specific text element. So maybe I am asking for a name and I want the text to include Amber. Now it could be Amber Garvey, it could be Amber Webb Garvey, but it's got to at least have Amber in there. So that's kind of how you would use that. But again, that custom error text is really important to help the person know why the form is rejecting their response. So it's really important to include that. So again, we have contains, doesn't contain, email address, and URL, and those are all for the text options. So now let's go down to length. So for length, this rule allows for a minimum or maximum character count for the answer entered. So a lot of times you'll see a question that says, in 500 words or less, answer this. So I could actually give them a minimum character count or maximum character count. So if I wanted it to be at least 500 characters, I could say the length is going to be a minimum character count of 500. So if they try to submit it and it's got 498 characters, it's not going to submit. But again, I need to include some custom error text so that the person will know why their answer is being rejected. The last option in these 4 options for short answers is regular expression. Regular expression requires text answers to meet a set of selected criteria, such as containing, not containing, matching or not matching certain words, phrases, or letters. So you'll see I have contains, doesn't contain, matches, or doesn't match. So I can include some sort of pattern that it does contain or doesn't contain, or a pattern that it matches. Now, regular expressions in the short and paragraph question types are super customizable, and I'm putting a link up right now with a complete list of regular expressions that can be used. So go to that site and you'll get more specific details on how a regular expression can be used for response validation. To remove a response validation, you simply click on the X, but I do want to show you a sample of how this looks in short answer. So for a quick sample, I'm going to show you that I want this question, how old are you, to show me a number greater than 4, because I hope that if you're filling this out, you're older than 4. Again, I could give them some custom error text that says you need to be older than 4 to complete this form. So here we go. I want to show you what this looks like. So let's preview this question with this custom validation so you can see how this works for entering a response and what happens when you don't enter that proper response. So I'm going to go to preview. So now that we're on this form, in the how old are you, I'm going to enter 3 and show you that when I go to enter that, it says you need to be older than 4 to complete this form. Let's go back to our form and take a look at the different types of validation responses that are under a paragraph question. For a paragraph question, turning on response validation brings you to length and regular expression. These are exactly the same and operate the same as they do in the short answer response validation options. These are the only 2, however, that are allowed in response validation for a paragraph type question. So let's take a look at check boxes. So under the check boxes, when you turn on response validation, you have the option to say they have to select at least, at most, or exactly how many. So if you need to choose your 3 favorite options, or choose no more than 2, or choose 2. So these are ways that you can limit the number that are selected. So response validation provides a great way for some self-checking before a form is submitted. We like to use these for doing online scavenger hunts so that the students will know to keep going and try to find a different answer before it's submitted. This is a wonderful way to use it for that purpose. Also, when you're doing surveys, it's a great way to make sure the right information is going into the right place, like email addresses or other types of information. So enjoy practicing and using response validation in Google Forms.